And so, it continues. Hello there, welcome back to Max's Writing Advice Q&A. I moved and in a brand new location, and you may notice that you can actually see my working monitors. I like that. The only downside is that you can see my preview window, but I can't. So hopefully I won't be fidgeting with my hair as much as I used to. We'll figure things out. I'm gonna let you know right now that I apologize if I'm not looking my best or if this video is not of the utmost quality. I'm trying out this new setup because I'm at a completely new place, and additional to that, I'm leaving on a trip in like the next 2 hours if these hairbands are correct, and yeah, I'm a little bit rushed for time. I hope that you don't mind. I do absolutely welcome your feedback, so let me know how you think this new setup looks. But for the time being, let's take it from the top. If you are unfamiliar to this video, so let me introduce you to my Q&A. Every video I answer 3 questions sent by viewers just like you and pick by a random number generator. It's the fairest way. By the way, if you would like to send a question that may or may not be answered in a following video, leave it in the comments down below. It's as likely to be picked as anyone else's. And one more thing, the writing advice that I provide within the following video is merely just my advice, my opinion, and what works for me. Don't take it as gospel, instead take it as the ramblings of a silly person who looks a little bit, or rather precisely like this. Did you see me? Did you see me trying to look at my preview window? Oh, I'm the worst. I'm the worst. But anyhow, let's take it from the top. The first question of the day goes a little bit like this. Hey Kirin, I'm in the process of editing a first draft and I'm really discouraged. A lot of the writing is in a different tense than how I want it to be. Any ideas? Yeah, I see what you mean. This is one of those tough, unfortunate situations. Like, I keep turning this question over and over in my head, and honestly, like, I feel you're just gonna have to roll up your sleeves and revise through this story very carefully to make sure that the tense is the one that you want. And I know this is not the most useful feedback, but honestly, you're in a situation in which, kind of like other parts of the revision process, you just have to power through them. You have to focus on what you're trying to do, in this particular case, fix the tenses within your story, and work on fixing them one by one, paragraph by paragraph, chapter by chapter, arc by arc, and work to get that done. And I know, this is not the most inspirational piece of feedback, so let me give you a little bit of inspiration. I want you to remember, as you get back to editing and to working on all this cleaning up of the tenses, I want you to remember that you have already done the hardest part. And I know that editing can seem incredibly overwhelming, especially when it's this enormous task. Breaking it down really helps, but I want you to remember that you have already written the first draft. That is the hardest thing. That is the biggest mountain to climb over. And I mean, of course, editing is not a downwards descent. You know, it's not easy peasy, but you have gotten through the hardest part. You've got all this clay, all of this fabric. All you gotta do is just cut it and give it shape. Think of the story you worked on. Think of all the time that you spent on this. You've been working on this project for a long while. Don't give up just yet. Keep pushing along. Be brave. You have made it farther than most people do. Keep going. I know you can do this, okay? Keep going. Question the second goes a little bit like this. When should I abandon a critic? I asked 2 friends for feedback, but last time I did, they told me the same for the 3rd time. Your character cannot carry your plot. I thought it was valid at first and changed stuff, but not the 3rd time where I wrote a prequel to my story with the same characters but changed the POV entirely. They told me the same because they assumed I kept the POV, point of view. I don't feel like asking them again if they base their feedback on assumption. Should I talk to them or drop them? Yep. This is a tough situation, not only because it's feedback, but it's also people and communication. Before we go on anywhere, let's take this from the top and talk about feedback. What is the whole point of reaching out to people for feedback? Why are we doing this? To make this story the best it can be. To look for things that can be fixed, to look for things that can be improved, and again, to seek to make the story the best it can possibly be. Now, with that basis said, I can understand why you would feel a little discouraged to reach out to these people, especially when you may feel that the feedback they're giving you is kind of on repeat. Now, I don't have all the pieces. I don't know all of the story. I don't know exactly how everything went about. But more often than not, situations like these are due to a lack of communication. Now, in regards to feedback, let me tell you a little something, okay? And this is something that I picked up in college, especially by doing a lot of feedback with other people, and also my wonderful creative writing professor. And she made it a rule that you could not give someone feedback without preceding everything you said with the letter I. I don't think that your character can carry your plot. And then, and only then, proceeding with explaining why you felt that way. The thing about feedback and asking for critiques is that most people don't know how to give critiques back. It's kind of unfortunate. That is why it's not always recommended to reach out to friends, even though that's all you may have. It's better to reach out to someone else who knows a little bit more about writing, because at least they can offer you solutions, not just problems, and they wouldn't just sell their feedback as ultimate or absolute truth. And of course, that's not how feedback is supposed to work. It's supposed to be someone offering you their point of view. And you just can't say things like, your character can't carry the plot, and just say it like as though it's an universal truth, and also just say it without offering some sort of solution. Hey, okay, why do you think my character can't carry this plot? Now, for anyone out there who may be giving feedback to somebody right now, do me a favor, do them a favor, be clear on what you're saying and explain your point of view. Now, slow down. I'm not blaming all of this on the feedbackers. I'm not blaming this on the beta readers, not at all. As I've mentioned in the past when I talk about feedback or asking for feedback, you as the writer need to ask questions. You as the writer need to ask them, how did you felt about that? Why did that bother you? Why? What can I do? Because ultimately, what are we here for? What are we trying to do? What's the whole thing about doing this feedback stuff? To make the story better, to look for things to improve, to look to fix mistakes before you send it out to publisher, before you put it up online for people to read. This is all just to make the story better. Now, let me wrap it up a little bit. I've gone a little too far. I've strayed from the path. Should you continue this relationship with these people or drop them? I feel that you've already made up your mind. More often than not, when people send questions, they've already made up their minds. They're just looking for justification, and if you want to drop them and start a new relationship with someone else, but come in with communication. If you don't want to drop them, that's fine too, but you got to talk to people. If someone gives you a piece of feedback, your characters can't carry your plot, ask them why they felt that way. It is ultimately their opinion. Not all feedback is born the same. It's an unfortunate reality, but you have to ask why. They may have the most subjective reason ever, but there may be a little nugget of truth right there. You gotta get down to it, but you must ask people. You must talk with them as well. Bottom line is, as always, that talking to people sucks, but it is the only way to make sure that collaborative work works the best way that it can be. So please, 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 talk to people. Whether it is these new beta readers that you'll find, or the ones that you're talking to right now, talk to people. Okay? Okay. And as for the last question of the day, it goes a little bit like this. A lot of your advice sums up to, don't sweat it, get the book done first. Yeah, pretty much. That's good for first draft stages, but I'm actually in revision, so I wonder, how do I make my writing sound smoother and more polished? Are there any hard rules? Well, first off, right off the bat, let me just say this real quickly right now. There are no hard rules, just recommendations. Anyone out there who tells you that there's a hard rule is most likely just overselling their opinion. I subscribe myself to the opinions of several, famous authors, sure. I agree with a lot of what Stephen King said in his memoir On Writing by Stephen King. But, I mean, it's just his opinion, though. It's what he found over his travels in his life and over his own creative writing process. And I have my own points of view, and you have yours, too. So, no, there are no hard rules for revision. There are tips and advice here and there. The one that I can give you, the one that I hold dearest to me the most, because there's a bunch of little things out there, little pieces of advice, especially from Stephen King, that I like, but I don't particularly hold myself to them all the time. One particular piece of advice from Stephen King that I like, but I don't hold myself to because it doesn't function with my brain and my writing style, is the idea that the second draft of your story should have 10% less words than the first draft, and that's cool for being concise and for being clear and for cutting away at the fat of your first draft. But some writers are taker outers and some writers are putter inners. And I am more of a putter inner kind of writer. I have dyslexia and I write really fast, so I end up missing over words and having a little bit of obtuse statements. So during the revision draft, I end up expanding on my statements to make sure that they're all clear, cutting away, plenty of cutting, but plenty of putting in as well. So again, not particularly hard rules, but I do have one particular tip, one piece of advice that I hold very dear to me, and I will give it to you right now. And if you've been watching my videos, you probably already have a feeling for what this is, but it's a piece of advice that I hold incredibly dear to me. And that particular piece of advice is to please, during the revision passes, not the first one, let's say like the second or third time that you're reading through the story, after you have done all of the nitpicky, all the simple and basic stuffs, sit down or stand before a mirror. Either way, turn on a mic, whatever gives you that sense of pressure that you're reading before a crowd, and read your story out loud. If you want to put on a mic, that may actually be better. It may force you to actually get in character. Read it out loud. If it doesn't sound good, it's not gonna read good. It's as simple as that. You ask about flow and you ask about the story feeling more polished, and I find that reading it out loud, actually reading it out loud, maybe in front of a mirror, maybe with the microphone on, or both, gives you that sense of pressure as though you're reading it before a crowd. And there are things that you're not gonna let slide if you are actually reading this before a crowd. It may be a lot of pressure for some people, but for me, I think it's just the right thing that I need on my third or fourth pass through a story, because it becomes a matter of, you know, I'm really deep into the story and it's time to actually start cutting away some lines or expanding on some that may not actually be effective. And I'm going a little long on this question, but just one more thing I want to give you, and that is that when you read your story, please be critical of your writing. Read it as though it is someone else's writing and ask yourself, would I let this mistake, would I let this not very efficient flow of narrative slide? If I had bought this book at the bookstore or online, if I bought this book and I found this passage, would I let this slide? Or would I say, no, writer, person who wrote this book, this is not a good line and I can't believe it made it into your final draft? Ask yourself that question. And I know that some people may think that's really harsh, but to me, I think that is one of the most effective ways of battling the inner slacker. The inner, it's fine, it's just that line, it's okay, it's just one. No, don't let those things slide. You're in the revision process, you're not gonna revise this book 10,000 times. You're not gonna revise it 10 years from now. You're gonna revise it once. A bunch of passes, sure, but you're gonna revise the book and it's gonna be done. You don't want to have to come back to this book later. You don't want to have to make revisions later. You want to revise it, make it the best it can be, and send it out into the world. Okay? Okay. And that's about it for today's questions. Some of those were a little bit serious, and I apologize if that contradicts my silly nature, but I hope that you enjoyed them though, and I hope that if anything I gave you my own point of view. If you have your own point of view regarding the questions that were answered today, and you would like to let all of us know, please drop your thoughts in the comments down below, as well as your questions for future videos. So let us out of the way though, again, I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me, and I hope that this setup is not too bad. Hopefully it's alright. I will fix it when I come back if nobody likes it, but for the time being though, thank you for watching, thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me, and I'll see you on the next one.